Dr. Was born and raised in Colombia and went to a college, UNAC, the Universitaria Adventista, and that's in Colombia. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then you went to master's. You have a master's degree in. I can't even see that. That JPG in Lamar University, and a master's degree in educational leadership and administrative administration. And also, you went to the Houston Christian University and received a doctor's degree, Doctor of Education. Uh, and now is that, and then there's also the University of St. Thomas. You received a master's degree there as well. Is that right?
That is correct.
And now St. Thomas is in Virgin Islands. Is
No,
that it?
it's University of St. Thomas in Houston.
In Houston?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. And then the Houston Christian University, where you got your doctor's degree, is also in Houston, right?
that is correct.
Okay. And then you worked in Houston, but one of the things that I wasn't able to understand very well is, did you go to someplace else before you ended up in Houston to as a superintendent?
Not
Was a
really.
super.
I started my career I started in Texas, my career, because I came really young to the United States. I came when I was 23.
Oh,
So I pretty much had graduated from college and came to do my master's degree in English. That was my plan, learn the language and also get my master's. And then in the meantime, while I was getting my master's, I was a teacher. So I was a teacher 20 plus years ago, started my career in Texas. So I lived in Texas for 17, 20. I lived in Texas for 23 years, but my career for about 18 years there, and then 3 years now in Billings.
aha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and I understand that you recently received the from the Education Insider top 10 school superintendents in 2025.
Yeah.
Uh, that's most impressive. And there were some other things too that I didn't fully understand, but wanted to mention that you. Well, let me see. You have well, it had something to do with the San Diego uh,
Yes.
newspaper. What's that about? San
So
Diego words.
the National Center of Urban School Transformation, NCAST, it's from San Diego, California. They rated the best urban schools in the nation based on poverty levels and student achievement. And my school, when I was a principal, was selected as America's best urban school.
Right.
Yeah,
And what school was that you
Deanda Elementary.
and
Deanda
where?
Elementary. Yeah, that's where I was a principal and supported
And
that
what
school
what
for many years.
is that in Houston?
Yes, Houston
Oh, in
area.
Houston.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And you came here in 2023, and we're
Yes,
so
sir.
delighted that you did. We're so
Thank you, Tom.
pleased to have you here. So I'll quit trying to further out your background and let you talk from this point forward. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So, good morning, everyone. I came with my wife and kids to Billings, and we have loved it. So, I'm gonna share my screen if that's okay. I hope you can see
Okay.
it. Um, so, pretty much what you'll see is kind of anchoring some of the my message to you today is we have you, the taxpayers, have made a tremendous investment in facilities and the education of students. So, I mean, think about 36 facilities. If you quantify those facilities, those are probably billions of dollars. Just to build a high school in today's dollars is $200 million plus. And so we have 36 facilities. Your parents, grandparents, your aunties, your uncle, all of your family members put their money forward to educate kids. And sometimes people forget about that. I'm not saying about you. I'm talking about the community at large. They forget that they made a huge investment in education. But people wonder, what is our return on investment? Because you hear the national narrative about the education being poor, kids can't read, kids can't do math, the system is broken, we're throwing money at a problem, teachers are indoctrinating, all of these narratives. And I want to show you, is that true? Is that correct? Is it that we are not producing results? And of course, it's really hard to compare Billings Public Schools to Baltimore or Detroit or Chicago or Denver, or, it's very complex. And perhaps there are other areas in the nation that are struggling significantly when it comes to student outcomes. But I want to just show you Billings Public Schools today. Where is it that we stand as a district when it comes to that return on investment? So let me start by just showing you a little bit of where we are with teacher pay. So when I got here, we were paying $42,000 beginning teachers, okay? The state of Montana was ranked 51 in the nation for beginning teacher pay. That has changed a little bit. I don't think we went to the top of the nation with the STARS Act, but even before the legislature passed the STARS Act, that was one of my commitments. My commitments was to balance the budget, because when I got here, we had a $8 million deficit. James can testify to that. We had an $8 million deficit. And we were paying teachers $42,000, and we had no programs additional to the typical high school program for kids. We didn't have curriculum in many of our special education classrooms. We didn't have any dyslexia services, things like that. And it was my commitment, with the help of James and the budget committee and the board, to balance the budget, reutilize resources, and pay teachers better. And that's what we did. We went from $42,000 to $50,000 in the past 2.5 years, which is a 17% increase. And not only that, we're paying average teacher pay right now is between 7 to 9% increase from 2023 to now. So your money not only is being maximized because we balanced the budget, but not only that, we were also able to raise salaries for our teachers. And of course, we had to cut some things. And you remember, we had to close a school, Washington Innovation. We closed Washington Elementary and turned that into a innovation center. So we didn't close the building, we repurposed the building, balancing the elementary budget, among other actions that we took. And this is the data that you see today in the Gazette. The number of dropouts. There was a time where we had 333 kids dropping from school. That number, after all of the actions we've taken, have come down to 140. That is one of my main concerns, the number of dropouts. You remember a couple of years ago, there was a streak of violence in our community, a lot of killings, and it was very sad when we were going back to see the records of these kids. And most of those kids that committed those crimes and were victims of those crimes were dropouts. That hasn't changed much. And so my commitment was to open opportunities for kids so they wouldn't drop out. It has implications in our community, and my goal is to get to zero. I don't think we can get there anytime soon, but we're going to strive for that reduction in the number of kids dropping out. So how is it that we have alleviated some of these dropout numbers? Well, Here's the other data points that are critical. So when I got here, we were proficiency, K through 8, proficiency, reading was 52%. Only 52% of our kids were proficient in reading, K through 8. And only 49% of the kids were proficient in math, K through 8. Okay. We put a lot of systems in place to make changes. Okay. And that would be probably 2-hour conversation about all the actions we took to get reading and math to increase. And now we went from the 40s and 50s to the 60s. So math is at 64% and reading is at 61%. And yes, these numbers are not excellent numbers, I can tell you. 60s is great, is good. I mean, based on where we were, but 64% is not excellent. And we want to be excellent. So we need 99% of the kids reading proficiently and 99% plus of kids doing math proficiently. But the growth that we've seen in the past 2.5 years have been pretty significant and steady, about 10 percentage points more kids reading proficiently. That has a connection to dropouts. As you know, kids that can learn when they're in third grade are 4 times more likely to drop out. And if those kids that can read are poor, then it's 6 times more likely to drop out. And if those kids that can read and are poor, and on top of that are a minority group, then they're 8 times more likely to drop out. So the key for us is we need to ensure that kids can read, because there is a direct correlation between the inability to read and do math proficiently in elementary with middle and high school dropouts. Let me give you another piece of data. The amount of students, or the percentage of students scoring 3 or higher on the AP exams, those numbers went from 70% when I got here to 79%. So we have more and more and more and more kids getting 3s or more on the advanced placement exams. If you get a 3 or more, in college terms, those kids are college ready. So we went from 70 to 79. Those are good numbers. We need more kids being college ready. But now let me show you dual credit and AP enrollments. Since I got here, we went from 1473 enrollments, AP enrollments, to 2252. That's pretty significant. You see the line? Yes, you've seen a steady growth, but all of a sudden we've made more effort to create more pathways. You can see the results. When it comes to dual credit enrollment, we went from 1347 to 1749. That's also pretty significant, the number of kids getting dual credit. This is the number of certifications, because not all kids are choosing to go to college, and that's okay. We want to give them certifications. So the number of certifications, the options we had 2.5 years ago was 16. You could get 16 certifications. Now we are at 29. So we almost doubled the number of certifications. We've added HVAC at the Career Center, plumbing, electricity, electric vehicles certification, drone management, and more certifications for kids. That has led for the district to go from 902 certifications to 1,200. Those are also very good numbers. When it comes to national standards, you've heard that the system is broken, and you see, because we get compared, this is the exam that is used to compare United States against other nations. It's called the NAEP assessment. Well, there's some context to this NAEP assessment. So what you see on this screen, on the right-hand side, you see the top says score point difference. So you see some arrows, green arrows, and a star. That star is Montana, okay? And those arrows are the states that are neighboring to us. Nebraska, Idaho, South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, well, Idaho, and yeah. So those green arrows are the states that are neighboring to us. Well, I added Nebraska. I don't even know. I don't think Nebraska is neighboring, but I just decided to add. That was me adding those green arrows. So what this shows is on the left-hand side of that chart, the larger the bar, the larger the gap between COVID and 2024. So for instance, on the left, you see Virginia. Virginia had almost -9 score difference on the NAEP assessment. That means Virginia had tremendous decline from COVID to 2024. Another state that had tremendous decline was Minnesota, Oregon, Maine, New Mexico, okay? And then you have the nation is right in the middle, and the star next to the nation is Montana. So that means that Montana in 4th grade math was alongside the nation when it comes to the gap. So the gap in Montana was somehow average, meaning our kids lost similar to most kids in the nation. So this 4th grade math data shows that we were kind of in the middle. We beat 2 states and 3 states beat us in 4th grade math. Okay, so you want to be on the right-hand side of that chart. You want to be with Alabama. Alabama actually had positive outcomes despite COVID. So Alabama, Louisiana, South Carolina, Hawaii, those are the states that did really well, that fare really well despite COVID. But let me show you 8th grade math. 8th grade math. So what that shows is that Montana was leading almost one of the highest in the nation, meaning our kids lost less from COVID to now. So you can tell we beat all of the comparing states plus most states in the nation. That's 8th grade math. This is 4th grade reading. Similar example, we're ahead of the nation and higher than our comparing states. And we fared really well. This is 8th grade reading. Again, we're above the nation and we're still beating most of the comparing states. So how is it that our kids lost less compared to the other states? Well, the only reason to explain that is quality instruction presented to the students. Quality instruction. So the work that our teachers are doing shows that we are above the nation and above the comparing states for most assessments assessed or measured by this assessment. So when people think about, is the system broke? Is the system damaged? Is the system, do we need to destroy this system? Because, that's the argument to say, let's give money to private schools. That's the argument that is being used to give money to parents so they can take their kids to a Catholic church or the Episcopal school and, the vouchers and people somehow want to undermine public schools. Well, what I'm showing you, not only with this national level data, but the other pieces of data that I've shown you, is that actually our system is a good, stable system. And actually, I can say we're moving from good to great. Let me give you another example. This is the state. These are the states that consistently test 95% of the juniors on the ACT, okay? All of these states are the only states in the nation where 95% of their juniors test. This data then is consolidated data. It's data that can be reliable and valid. We are in the composite score higher than any other state. We're higher than Nebraska, Wyoming, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, Arizona, Mississippi, Oklahoma, and Nevada. That is on the composite score. Let me show you the breakdown by subject. English, reading, math, science. We are number one in every single subject. 33% of these data is Billings Public Schools. I asked that question specifically. What is the Billings Public Schools participation on the Montana ACT data? We're number one across the board. So is it true that our system is broke? Is it true that kids are being indoctrinated? It's not true. I mean, I've been to these classrooms. I go to the classrooms unannounced in kinder, in elementary, in middle school, and in high school. Every single time, 100%, when I go in, students are being presented information related to a particular standard. There is no such thing as um, leader boxes, as you heard one of the OPI leaders say one day. And there's no such thing as this indoctrination. Of course, there's debate. Of course, there's free thinking. Of course, kids share ideas. Of course, that is what public schools are about. So we have a good system. And I can say it's probably a great system. And that's where we want to take our district. Let me give you another set of data here. This is growth. How much are our students growing? Is the growth that our schools in elementary, this is only elementary, is their growth consistent with a healthy system as defined by FastBridge? Because FastBridge is the assessment that we're using. It's a norm reference assessment, nationally normed. And according to them, to FastBridge, healthy systems grow between 40 to 75. If you have less than 40, you're not a healthy system. If you're 75 or above, you're way, way, way high. That means extremely well, extremely great system. This is reading data, only growth. Every single school meets the 40 to 75 healthy system mark. Every single, not one elementary school is below 40. Yes, we have some low ones, 47, it's big sky. Let me give you 49, Orchard. Those are the only two with 40s. In the 50s, you have Highland, you have Ponderosa, okay? But you also have 60s, and you also have some 70s, such as Arrowhead, such as Poly Drive. So what that says is we are providing instruction in a healthy system. That is reading, and let me show you math. It's even higher than reading. More schools with 50s and 60s and 70s, consistent with the healthy system data point. So Billings Public Schools, I can with confidence say today, is providing good instruction and good outcomes, and therefore good return on your money. Every time you pay those taxes, every time you pass those levies or you vote for those levies, you can rest assured that you are making the right investment. Okay? It's not speculation just because it's my opinion. It's not just because I think it is like that. No, data shows that we have a really good system that is turning into a great system, as you would expect. This is safety. We asked students, staff, and families. We want to know, how do you think we're doing when it comes to safety? So this rating is from 1 to 4. The highest is 4, okay? The lowest is 1. And that red line that you see is 3. So staff have pretty much say confidently, with confidence, that we are safe. Students, 3rd grade through 5th and 6th through 12, they also we are above the red line. And even in the high school, middle and high schools, those numbers were right on 3, and you can see that they're moving upwards. So now they went from 303 to 324, and families is actually one of the ones with the highest, is 337 to 353 is the highest. So families have a perception that we are safe. Staff feel safe, students feel safe. Now, this data was collected in December. And by the way, this has been measured for the past 2.5 years. Since I came, we put this survey in place. It's a valid and reliable scientific survey, okay? Now, we had some events in January. We had a situation that I'm pretty sure you're aware of, a situation where a student and a teacher got hurt, and there's allegations that the student had stabbed the teacher. Right now, we're waiting for the police to file charges and to let us know what happened there, because I wasn't there. We didn't have cameras there. The only people that were there were the teacher and the student. So it's hard to make judgment, right? And people want to rush to judgment. So we're giving the police time. Not only that, we had a student at West that said that he was going to blow up the school and he had guns, and he got apprehended by the police. And that's another incident. And then lately, we just had a situation at elementary school where allegedly one of the clubs that meets at night, one of the instructors had a magazine, a gun magazine with bullets in it, and he had it in his jacket, and he came to the school without a gun, allegedly. And when he put his jacket away, the magazine fell off, and one of the clubs saw the magazine. They didn't report it to us. They reported it to another parent. Before we knew it, it was online on social media, and we had no clue that that was happening. But we addressed it. So we don't know where this data is going to fall next time we make this assessment, okay? The data might not be as good as we had it. But overall, for the past 2.5 years, there's a sense of safety within our schools. Same goes with academics. That's families and staff have a perception that we provide quality, high standard instruction that is consistent. But when you think about your investment, I want to show you this picture here. The good old Daily Stadium that when you drive by, you don't see it anymore, you know? And I remember I was looking for some historical data, and apparently people started having conversations about the Daily Stadium 2004. And here we are in 2025, and nothing was done. So right now we've raised, we have at hand $12.5 million to fix the stadium. The demolition is ongoing, and not only that, we're pouring concrete on the stadium. So you're going to see a state-of-the-art stadium very soon. Just know that you as the taxpayers, we have to reflect. We have to reflect what's going to happen to the investment that you have made. Are we going to let our schools crumble? Are we going to let our schools fall apart? Are we going to let our schools shut down because we can't have roofs or foundation or safe conditions for kids? So eventually, we're going to bring to the voters a high school bond, because we have buildings that are 120 years, 110, 90, 70, 50. And there's a lot you can do with cleaning and patching up and painting, which is what we use our funding for maintenance. But it gets to a point where maintenance is not enough. You really have to go down to foundation, or you have to really make transformation in some of these buildings. So spring of 2027, as you know, the county is trying to run a jail expansion or jail construction in the month of November. And we didn't want to get in the middle of that. So we're going to let the voters decide whether they want a jail and for the month of November. And then once they run their jail bond in the spring, we're going to run the high school bond. And we have to take care of these facilities. The challenge is that every year, the cost of repair becomes greater and greater. So right now we have $88 million of deferred maintenance, $88 million. Every year that goes up 6%, because the more you let it go, the more time you let it pass, it becomes more expensive for the taxpayers. And I know there's a lot of fatigue when it comes to the taxpayers. And I understand as a homeowner, you guys are being beat up. And I know there's some legislative action that needs to happen so the homeowners are receive the relief that they need, because everything is really on the shoulders of the homeowners. And we don't want to see people being evicted because those bills are going up. But at the same time, we have an obligation to address the needs of our facilities for the future generations. So we are making good use of your taxpayer funds. We're taking care of our facilities, producing student outcomes. We're producing good to great return on investment. And we ask you to consider evaluating the current conditions of our district and consider analyzing whether you will vote or not, support or not support a high school bond for the spring of 2027. And with that, I conclude, and I'm open for questions.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and go back to your the gallery and drop so we can see everybody?
Yep, absolutely. Let me stop sharing. Perfect.
Very good. Well, yeah, I'll ask a question to start out with. Those are very impressive numbers. Very impressive the way you presented it. I think you did a really nice job. But I can't help but wonder, how did you do it? The question I really want to ask is, how did you end up with a financial situation when it was so bad when you came?
So we had a series of levers, 8 levers to pull from. And we cut 75 positions in the district without affecting the operations of the district. So how did we do that? We literally went down and counted the number of kindergarteners, the number of first graders, the number of second graders, and we went up and up and up, counting. And then we said, okay, if you're a teacher and you have 10 kids, according to the law, you could have 20. Okay. Do we want a kindergarten teacher with 20 instead of 10? Well, perhaps there might be a debate. However, research says that the number of students in a classroom is not a determining factor for student success. In actuality, the capacity of the teacher is a greater factor of success. So if you have high quality instruction, you might be a teacher with 15 or 10 or 20 or 25 or 30, and you will be successful because you're effective. So we maximize the numbers of students without exceeding that threshold for accreditation. So that allowed us to cut positions and teachers, but not teachers, because we didn't fire anybody. What we did is when people submitted their resignations and retirements, for attrition, we were able to cut 75 positions. Those are millions of dollars, $5 million. Then we cut budgets at the district level. So we cut operational budgets to the tune of about 10%. And then we maximize resources on the health insurance fund. We created an MOU with the unions. So there was the high deductible plan, which saved a lot of money for the general fund. So we balanced the budget and we were actually positive. And then we turned that around and gave it to the teachers for teacher raises. And we did exactly the same thing in middle and high school. programs that were antiquated, that were not providing clear results, we closed some of those programs. And of course, when you have less dropouts, it has a financial impact on your budget. Because if you think about this, you lose 300 kids, multiply that times 8,000, those are $2.4 million there that you lose every year because you're losing all these kids. If we're able to retain those kids and give them pathways, we're actually gaining funding back. And not only that, we opened the Kinder Ready program for kindergarten students, for pre-K students. You know, we have a Kinder Ready. We had 100 and something kids every year from poverty households receiving instruction before they go to kinder. We started that 2 years ago. That generates revenue. We also had the Jumpstart program during the summertime. We had about 30 kids when I got here. We have like 300 kids going to that Jumpstart program. Every kid is 1/4 A&B, meaning more funding for the district. And then on top of that, we are raising grants, applying for grants, and we've raised $5 million. Only last year, we raised $5 million in grants. So with grants, we're doing a lot of things: dyslexia services, psychological help for some of the kids that don't have behavioral health support for suicidal kids. We have programs for behavior in elementary. We brought Hope Squad and Rachel's Challenge to the middle schools. We got with the Army to get the JROTC, the military pathway, in our schools. Now we have that program at West, and so forth and so on. So we've been creative, not only depending on the general fund, but looking for donations and grants and money, and that's where we are right now.
So how many students are under your care? As a
16,500.
superintendent? Is that the largest in the state of Montana?
Oh, absolutely. The second largest is Missoula, and I want to say they're probably 10 to 11,000.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, we're
That's
almost
really-
double, well, yeah, significantly more students in Billings than Missoula or Bozeman or Great Falls. Yeah.
And you haven't had a school levy for a long time, have you? Is that
The
correct?
safety levy, we tried to pass that 2 years ago, and as you remember, it got shut down pretty badly. The taxpayers, they believe that wasn't the right time, and many taxpayers really couldn't afford it. That's a reality. So even people that wanted to vote and support it, they couldn't. So it's pretty sad that unfortunately there's a lot of pressure on the homeowners to get these levies passed.
Yep. Okay, let's go to some of the other questions. Carol, you have your hand up first. Carol Mick.
Yeah, you mentioned something called leader boxes. Could you define what that is?
Yeah, so there was a person in the state, at the state level, that said that there was such a level of indoctrination in this districts across Montana that they had found litter boxes, like for cats. And the argument was that we had kids that identified as cats. And she made the comment that we had litter boxes. And that created such a backlash from the people on the conservative side because they thought that we had litter boxes serving cats, kids that pretended to be cats. Now, today it seems like that's a trend, kids trying to identify as dogs and cats and things like that. But in Montana, there's no such a thing of us having litter boxes for kids. That's a complete myth. But it damaged the credibility of the districts across Montana because people are thinking, what are these people doing? You know, we don't do those things. So I can tell you, I can assure you, I don't know what happens in Portland, Oregon. I don't know what happens in Chicago. But in Billings Public Schools, we don't have litter boxes. We don't have the so-called indoctrination that many people go around saying. That's not a thing in Billings Public Schools.
I have just one other question. What is your opinion of dropping of the ACT and the SAT tests?
So my opinion is that that's not a good thing. What has happened is in many states, they're moving towards the equality as being one of these values that supersedes other values. And the problem with that value being the highest, the being on top of everything, is that people are afraid of achievement. So let me give you an example. There's some districts across the nation that have closed their gifted and talented programs. Why? Because they don't want to create a gap. Well, you can't have kids that are so smart above other kids and so then creating this disparity. So let's get rid of the gifted program so everybody's on the same playing field. That sounds great on paper, but it shuts down people that can actually do great things in life. You know, there's kids that are going to college when they're 12, 13. Why are we going to stop them from growing and being the best they can be? Those are the future scientists, the future doctors. So I don't agree that for the sake of equality, you have to lower the bar. And some states, what they're trying to do is removing the SAT and ACT. So there's no such thing as disparities, but disparities exist because we're all different. You know, there's kids that are extremely bright and we shouldn't be teaching to a low level because, someone is gonna get offended by Georgie, who is extremely bright. Well, sorry, you have other talents that you have to explore. But Georgie is way smarter than you in math, and that's a fact. And we should be able to be comfortable knowing that there are people that can achieve and do greater things that I can do. So just for the sake of equality, we can't be lowering the expectations.
Well, isn't it probably smarter to think that the lower ones are the kids that haven't had the opportunity in education and enhance their opportunity? Because I know there's some kids that have got the opportunity once they do become the smart kid.
Yeah. So give all the kids opportunities, right? Mm-hmm. But then kids that are already up there, they need to be accelerated, not slowed down, mm-hmm. to catch up with the low kids. Mm-hmm. And the low kids have to be pushed forward so they can be on grade level and then, of course, achieve great things for themselves.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
These tests here in Billings. Do you use those tests in Billings? The tests that she was mentioning.
Yeah, we use not the SAT, we use the ACT, and the tests that we use for middle and elementary proficiency are norm reference assessments. So those are NWEA and FastBridge.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
Jack Klonbeck?
Pardon?
There we go. Oh, you're still muted, Jack. There.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for this presentation. And yes, I know all about school buildings. I've worked in all kinds of them, from the wealthiest in the country to the poorest in the country. But I'm curious about what kinds of what schools are needing the most assistance with your new bond issue in 2027.
Thank you. So, as you know, we have 4 facilities that would qualify for the high school bond, the Career Center and the 3 high schools. The one that so far has the most repairs to be made, the one that has the most deferred maintenance and the most cost is West High School. It is almost $100 million to bring that school back to a normal state. For some reason, Senior, being so old, was so well built that senior has withstand the pass of time. Senior is standing in a really good position, even though there's a lot of old things. But senior is a very good, solid building, not West. Skyview is okay because it's a relatively newer version, and the Career Center is kind of an old building, but can still sustain more years of service. So to answer your question, West has to be considered for the bond, but we're actually including all of the schools on the bond, all of the schools. So there's some things that we have to do at senior. There's some expansion that we need to do for academics and athletics, and for the CTE programs, as well as the Career Center. We want to expand those career opportunities and the early college high school at the Career Center because of the proximity it has with the City College. And Skyview, there's some work that we have to do to expand, and of course, West.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you,
Julie Hickler.
Hi. I am curious, what are the impacts you've seen, excuse me, from the cuts of the Department of Ed? And a follow-up, like what are some legislative priorities you have for the next session in the legislature?
So let me start with the last question. So we are working to support the decennial study, possible legislation coming out of that. There is a proposed bill or proposed initiative coming from MTSBA and School Administrators of Montana called CAPS. And this seems to align to what the decennial study from the legislative body is coming forth. And that is a complete restructuring of how schools are funded in the state of Montana. Those are key provisions. There's a lot of talk about getting rid of the decrement, which is a complex definition. I can define it, but it's going to take some time. Also, the facilities, the fact that there's all of the facilities in Montana that are in a serious condition rely, or those districts rely on the homeowners to foot the bill. The state has no mechanism to support those buildings to make significant restructuring. Those restructurings have happened in, for instance, Wyoming. They did a lot of investment at the statewide level. In Montana, it seems like that's not the case. So we are focused on those legislative pieces that will affect how we can address the needs of our buildings and the academics for the students. That's one. When it comes to the Department of Ed, those funds have been transmitted to the state, and the state is pretty much providing the same level of funding for the title monies. So Title I, Title II, Title III, IV, V, all the title money has been coming in just as expected with no impact. Of course, one of the areas that I can be concerned about is the data that was collected to the national research funded through federal, the Department of Education for research, and how that department is being slimmed down. And I think that that's going to affect districts across the nation because we're not going to have relevant data to make some decisions. But so far, things are going well with those funds.
And special ed included? Those
Special ed. It has been underfunded for years, so that really hasn't changed. The legislature is looking into creating multipliers for special education. So we get more funding for special education for kids in poverty, for English language learners. And that's what the legislature through CAPS and MTSBA and SAM, I think that that's the direction that they will be taking. Now, I'm not so sure that the committee as a whole will support it, but they're still discussing it at this time.
The education committee, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called the Decennial Study Committee.
Okay.
Decennial Study. And the people like Mafi, she's
Mhm.
really well invested. And if you have questions about like what's happening with that committee, highly encourage you to talk to Mafi.
Okay.
And Karen Moses as well. She's well versed. She can explain that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, let's
Tom,
go to.
there's a person with a hand raised. I see hello on the screen, but I don't know if we have given her a chance to ask her question.
I don't, well, yes, the best way is to put your hand up with that yellow thing that's over on the.
She did. Yeah.
But I think, yeah, Barbara Garrett is next. So why don't we go to
Yeah,
Barbara?
my question is one of the common beliefs is that when a school district needs to squeeze every dollar they can get to make their basic needs, they cut the art programs. Where does Billings stand as far as maintaining or growing the art programs?
Great question. Great question. No, and that is common across the nation. I've seen in many systems that the first thing people do is cut fine arts and music. And I'm actually the opposite to that, because I believe that we need to have more music and more art. So we actually have increased the footprint of fine arts and music in the school system. Yes, we're not cutting from music and arts. We believe the opposite, that we need to fund those.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I know, Marian, you put something on but okay, let's see. What are some of the district's top priorities for SD2? Okay, if the 2020.
Yeah, I think you already answered that one. Thank you.
Yeah. And then the next comment is, or question is, but is that because the exam standards have decreased? I don't think that that's the case, Marianne. I think, so what happens with norm reference assessments, there's, they get to, every time an assessment is given, they have some pilot questions embedded within the assessment, right? Those pilot questions that people answer, and they don't get accounted for that group of people in that sample. So then what they do, they take those assessment questions and they norm those questions based on their responses, right? Most of these assessments are intelligent and adaptive. So what happens is, let's say that you take the first 2 or 3 questions on the assessment, they're usually at a medium to high level of rigor. And then, of course, if you flunk those 2 or 3 questions, then the system understands that you are not ready for a higher level question. And then the questions become either at the same level or decrease on the level. So let's say that I'm a student that is very comfortable doing math and I answered those 3 questions really well. What's going to happen is the questions are going to become very difficult for you. But what that's saying is that you're actually performing at a very high level, even if you flunk some of the other questions. And then for those people that say, well, the test was really easy, well, it became easy because you weren't able to answer the difficult questions. So there is really the adaptive nature of those assessments really is not that the level of standard has decreased.
Okay.
Is because the test is adaptive based on your level, and that's how you're rated.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. Can I follow up on the previous speaker's question? So, she talked about arts, which was kind of interesting because I want to talk to you about sciences. And my concern, so I've got 2 littles, one who just entered the SD school system and one who's going to be entering next year. And I think from my perspective, something that's concerning me is the extreme focus on math and reading in K through 8, how little science there seems to be and how few opportunities to engage with those topics. I think going back to what you said, I love this idea of like providing opportunities for students to decrease apathy, to decrease dropout. And I think the sciences provide an incredible opportunity for kids who maybe are finding themselves not interested in other things. That can really hit hard for them if they're exposed to it at an early age. And currently what I'm seeing is science is being treated as sort of like a boutique thing. Like if we have an extra 5 minutes, we might talk about the sun or something. And it's kind of depressing. It's scaring me because I think science is foundational and so important for everything. And it seems like I love the Quest program. I think it's absolutely fantastic. The educators there are doing a wonderful job, but the idea that you have to test into a program in order to be exposed to, critical thinking in a scientific sense is really sad to me. So I appreciate the idea of like not being afraid of achievement. Absolutely, I agree. I don't like this lowering of the bar, but it just feels like School District 2 science is just like getting so watered down and being treated as like an elective if we have time.
Yeah. So Marianne, let me ask you this. How long have you been with the district?
Very early. So second grader at Poly, and then soon to be a first grader at Poly.
Got it. Okay. So that statement that you just made about the sciences is a statement that I don't see happening across the district.
Okay.
So we have Project Lead the Way, which is one of the most rigorous science curriculums in the nation. It's research-based. That's what our teachers have to be teaching in the sciences. And so I would highly encourage you, because I cannot say that this is a district-wide issue. It seems like a school-wide, or perhaps, I don't know, teacher-wide. I highly encourage you to ask the question to that principal in particular to say, hey, what is, I know you're teaching Project Lead the Way. Can you walk me through what happens on a daily basis in your classroom? Okay. Because I can tell you, I know the curriculum. It is extremely rigorous. And I challenge you to look at Project Lead the Way. It is one of the most rigorous science curriculums in the nation. And that's what we teach. Now, on the Quest program, so you have both your kids on the Quest program or one?
No, I don't have. I have taught, was asked to speak for the Quest program as a guest speaker, and got to see, got to interact with these kids for a week and see how they're, the focus on critical thinking and social, deep learning is, I just feel like that should be more of a focus in all of the classrooms. And it's
the challenge. So I understand what you're saying when it comes to the Quest program, but that program has been designed. It has its own curriculum. So if we have the regular traditional curriculum and some kids struggle, so we have to have what would be grade equivalent and age appropriate. And that should be the current curriculum that the kids are receiving in the general education program. Marian, I'm curious, are you from Rocky Vista University?
No.
Are you connected to Rocky? Okay, because we brought the Rocky Vista doctors to Quest because the kids were doing a study on AI and on brain functioning. And we brought the doctors from Rocky Vista, and we took some of our students to Rocky Vista University, which were pretty cool. So, Marian, what I would say is this, and I'm glad that you have that concern, because that means that you're going to ask really good questions. Ask the principal, hey, walk me through what happens in the science, in that science block. How often are students experiencing science in first and second grade? Ask the teachers what curriculum they're using. They're supposed to be using Project Lead the Way. Yeah, and I can tell you
that's like a state mandated
curriculum. No. That is not state mandated. That's the curriculum that we have adopted in our district. Yes. So ask those questions and see perhaps if the teachers are not teaching science, that's really problematic. Or if the science that they're teaching is not aligned to the curriculum, that's really problematic. So
Okay.
I
No,
highly
that's a
encourage
good-
you to have that
I
conversation
will.
with that principal. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to run out of time pretty soon. I want to make sure Adela gets a chance. Why don't you go ahead, Adela? And we'll go back to Carol.
Thank you. Um, well, and thank you, Erwin, for all that you are doing. And there's not many more challenging positions. And I almost hesitated to ask this question because of all the pressures I know that you have on you, that the schools have coming from every direction. But it seems as I look around, one of the things I see, and I think this is connected to unengaged, maybe not seeing the whole picture citizens who vote against school funding, whether it's how they deal with their legislators or local bond issues. We don't seem to be turning out enough students who have critical thinking skills and who I don't know. I remember taking civics and government when I was in high school a long time ago. Uh, but uh, young people who feel part of a community and a commitment to community and understand how important schooling is, education is for a city, a community, a state to be healthy and have citizens who feel a responsibility not just to getting richer themselves, but to giving back to their communities. So again, understanding that you have so many challenges, but is that something that the schools can or should do?
So when it comes to the critical thinking piece, that is always the greatest challenge. And I can tell you that challenge happens here, happens in most districts across the nation. How do we get the kids to critically think? Because the greatest challenge is how can we avoid us teaching kids what to think instead of how to think, right? Let me give you an example. We had the situation in Minnesota with ICE and the lady that got shot, right? We had different interactions between teachers and students on this topic. Most teachers, what they did was, instead of telling you my opinion, right, about what I think I saw, kids bring it up sometimes, or the teachers bring it forward, but it is a conversation about what do you think happened there, right? What evidence do you have? And even managing it with tact, we still got a lot of complaints. So we still got people that felt that the teacher had brought that topic forward, for instance. Well, in many instances, the teacher didn't bring the topic forward, it was the students. Some parents felt that we shouldn't have discussed those topics in middle school or high school, right? So how dare you have this conversation in school? And then some kids went home saying ICE is XYZ, criticism towards ICE. And then parents at home thought that the teacher must have been the one telling the kids this. Well, not necessarily. It was a conversation that happened in the classroom. So let me tell you what's happening. We're getting, somehow there's a lot of assumptions being made about what happens in the classroom without really understanding what really happened. So we got people with one perspective saying, my kid, how dare you as a system is promoting rioting or promoting anarchists, such as this lady, or how dare you will support ICE doing these atrocities, when in reality that wasn't the case, that we weren't teaching that. There was a conversation and perhaps a healthy debate happening in the class. So we have become hypersensitive and hyper polarized that almost anything becomes a political discussion that probably was healthy in the classroom and then became a point of discord. And unfortunately, many of our teachers are being attacked. Think about the Charlie Kirk situation. You know, we got a lot of attacks. You guys, me, we're indoctrinating kids. Think about the situation at senior. Just because I didn't reveal more details as far as the student goes, I was hiding something, or we were complicit hiding something, when that is a police investigation. There's really, once we give it to the police has to investigate it. There's nothing really I can do. Especially, I can't get in the way of a criminal investigation by changing attitudes or perceptions, because at the end of the day, whoever was involved in this situation will have to have a jury. And if I already gave my statement of who's to blame, how am I going to expect that jury to be completely unbiased when, as a superintendent, I have a big platform, a big microphone? And so I can tell you, Adela, that it is unfortunate that we have become as a nation so divided and polarized. And when people have their own insecurities or their own opinions, they seem to not be able to stand that critical thinking is actually happening in the classroom. And then we become the target because somehow the conversation happened in the classroom. So, I think it's complex there's other topics that are pretty sensitive, right? Critical race theory, DEI, right? Pretty sensitive. And sometimes it's not really the teacher teaching that, it's really that the conversation happened and all of a sudden the teacher is the center of attacks. We had some fabulous teachers that were trying to prolong their tenure. Now they want to retire. Seasoned teachers with high quality talent and experience, and they're like, we can't take it anymore. Like people are hypersensitive, and then they come accusing. They don't come to you seeking to understand. They come with judgment. You're doing this, you're doing that. Well, do you really know that we're doing that? But they just made their minds instead of asking good questions and instead of seek to understand. I think that's a principle that people forgot about. Yeah.
Okay.
So it seems like an issue with parents rather than students.
Well, students too,
Why this is so.
Yeah, students too,
why this
because
is-
they go home and they're offended because there was the conversation didn't fit the narrative that is happening at home. So, yeah.
Okay, we're going to run out of time, and we appreciate Erwin staying with us. But Carol, if you have a real quick question.
Well, I just have kind of a thing about when I was in school, we learned a lot about how to live, how to understand our government and all this other stuff. But once we got out of school, it was kind of a shock because there was a lot of stuff going on that we didn't realize was going on. Now I see these kids having more chance of understanding as they're coming out at rallies we have. They really have a pretty good focus on what's going on and want to know where they need to be standing to do what they need to be as a human being. And I think that's very awesome, and I think that's goes to our educational. I have several others, but one of the things I want to stress is that for a few years they call the education program being STEM. I said, well, you forgot one letter, A, the arts. And I, as a scientist, would have really felt hampered if I didn't have my arts and my other liberal education, because it helped me do the science and be the person I needed to be a scientist in the proper perspective of everything else. It gave me balance. So that's another thing. Two other things are that the college commitment with kids going to take college before they're in college. I was hoping that maybe the college programs could help you with funding. And then the Career Center, are there industries that are helping with the training for that?
So, Carol, can you reframe that question? Apologize.
On the what? On the college
Mhm.
career? Well, kids that are able to take some college.
Yes. So that's the dual credit program, which I show you the data that those numbers have increased. So more and more kids are obtaining both high school credit and college credit. With the early college high school, we have kids that will obtain an associate's degree as well.
Okay, I was wondering on how are the colleges helping you with that? Are they
Yeah.
partnership?
Yes, the partnership exists with both Rocky and MSUB, but of course MSUB is the one leading that. Now, University of Montana and Montana State University both are trying to become more engaged with our partnership. So we have some plans to expand the healthcare sciences program, something that Marianne, has a passion for. Our goal is to expand the health sciences program next year. We're going to open a charter school. The goal is to open
I'm not a doctor or a nurse. I don't care about health sciences. I care about biological sciences. Just FYI.
No,
but I thought you were passionate about science.
Well,
all science and STEM is completely devoid of so many aspects of science. It's preparing people to become doctors and nurses, and I find that despicable. Just my thoughts.
Okay. So healthcare sciences will be opening a charter school at the Lincoln Center, and we have most likely we're going to double the number of kids getting those dual credit certifications. So both University of Montana and Montana State University are partnering with us so we can make that happen.
Yeah, okay. And the Career Center also, I know that they help with training for trades, pretty much, getting kids.
Yes, that is correct.
And I also know that MSUB has a program that works with the industry to help kids, and they even sometimes hire kids before they even finish school so they can learn trades. So I was hoping that maybe that's also been implemented in the high school level. And the other thing was, I guess what I wanted to say to Marion is that she might want to attend the Science Expo that MSUB has every year, because she can really see what students are doing in all the grades from first all the way through senior high on projects. And there's a lot of good science projects that are in those expo get-togethers. So
okay. Yeah. We're really running out of time. I was hoping you'd say something about the charter schools. You started 2 charter schools. Are they successful?
Absolutely. So we have at the early college high school, we have 100 plus students that will obtain an associate's degree the same day that they obtain a high school diploma, which is pretty cool. We have that program at Washington Innovation Center. We also have the Opportunity School, which is for many students that are credit deficient. And what we did, we opened a technology lab for the students. So students are learning while they're going to the Opportunity School, they're learning more about 3D printing, drone management, website design, cybersecurity. So they're getting skills for life. And actually, the first year we opened the Opportunity School with credit deficient students, we graduated 6 students that, if not for the program, they would have dropped out. And this year we anticipate graduating 20 students out of the Opportunity School, which is pretty amazing.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, I think that you've done a great job of telling us what's going on in the school district. We really appreciate that, and we have to be impressed with how well you're doing in helping people in our school district in Billings. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
all of that can only be done because of our wonderful teachers that we have. And I also see Ayon Young. She just joined us. I see her message. Ayon is someone who works really, really close with me at the school. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate your coming this morning. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And we'll see you all next week.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Super.
Hi, Karen. Good to see you.
Hi, Karen.
Hi there. Oh,
Hey, Karen.
thank you.
Take care,
Thank you.
guys. Thank you.
You bet.